Alright, now it is time to learn how to install MongoDB. Now I'm going to show you how to install it on a Mac, and then in a separate video segment, Dwight Merriman is going to show you how to install it on a PC in Windows. And that's a video segment from our M102 class. So let's get started. The first thing I need to do is find MongoDB, and typically the way you would do that on the web is you would type download MongoDB into Google, and then it would bring you a bunch of links. And in this case, I'm going to go for the first organic search result, which is at mongodb.org. And that's going to bring us to this page. So on this page, you're going to see along the top a bunch of different platforms for which we build MongoDB. And then on the left here, in this column, are different releases. So the one that you want to use is the top one. And that's going to be our most recent stable release. Now, the second digit here tells you whether or not it's a stable release or not. If it's an even digit, like 2.4, it's a stable release. And the last part, which is .5, is which maintenance revision it is. So in this case, it's the 5th revision, and it's a 2.4 release. And then over here on the bottom, there are other releases that I won't go through right now. So we're on a Mac, so we're going to pull down a 64-bit release, and the Mac OS is a 64-bit operating system. On some operating systems, you can get a 32-bit release, which we don't recommend unless you really need it, because MongoDB uses memory map files, and using a 32-bit release will limit your files to 2 gigabytes, so it'll limit your collections to 2 gigabytes. Let's download this 64-bit version for Mac OS, and you can see it's downloading here on the bottom. It's about 80 something megabytes, and this is a pretty fast connection we have here in the building, so we're already done. Let's bring up a terminal window on a Mac, and from there I'm going to go into the downloads directory, ~downloads directory, and see what's there. And you can see that we have the tarball that we just downloaded from the internet. And I'm going to now expand that tarball using the tar xvf command. And on a Mac, you can also double click on this in the Finder. I think it'll work as well. And then that's going to expand it into a bunch of different directories. ls, see what directories are there. I'm going to cd into the directory. ls again, I see that there's a license, a readme, and a bin directory. The bin directory is really the interesting one. It has a bunch of executables that are related to MongoDB, and the ones we're going to focus on right now are the MongoD executable, which runs the server process itself, and the Mongo executable, which is the shell that will connect to that process. Now, in order to run MongoDB, you need to have the right directory set up so that it can store the data files away. And by default, it puts files in the /data/db directory. So on a Mac, in order to write that directory, which is in root, I'm going to need to become root, because that is owned by root. So I'm going to do that right now. I previously typed the password, so it didn't prompt me for the password. Now I am root. And then I'm going to use the mkdir command to create a /data directory, and another mkdir command to create a /data/db directory. And now the final thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use chmod to make that directory world writable so that I can run the MongoD executable as myself. And I'm going to do that, and then I'll go into /data. And then here I'll show you the DB directory. I use the -LD flag for ls to be able to look at a directory versus search inside it. And you can see it's a directory. A DB directory is a directory that's owned by root but is world writable. Now, having the directory be world writable is probably not a good idea for production, but for development it's fine. So we're going to do that. I've now exited, so I'm now the 10gen user again on this computer. And now I'm going to go back into my downloads directory. And I'm going to go back into the expanded directory and back into the bin directory. And I am going to look there in that directory again. You can see I've got a bunch of executables. And I'm going to start up the MongoD daemon. And I'm going to do that by typing /MongoD. Tells the operating system to search inside the current directory in case there's any other instance of it running anywhere on the computer. And if I do that, you can see it's going to print out a bunch of stuff to the console. This is the log from MongoD. And the first thing it tells us is that it's starting it up. It's giving us the PID that it's running under, telling us it's listening on the standard TCP port of 27017, and that it's putting its data in /data/db, which is what we just created. And it gives us a limit telling us that our R limits are set too low for production. You'd want to increase those for production so that you wouldn't have any issue with the number of connections and number of file descriptors that the operating system supports. But in development, this is going to be fine for us. Now that MongoD is running, I want to make sure it's running, so I want to run the Mongo shell. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go back into the downloads directory and back into that expanded directory, back into the bin directory. And then I'm going to run the Mongo shell by typing /mongo. Notice not /mongodb, but /mongo. And if I do that, it's going to connect. And it's going to tell me that it's connected to the database. It's going to give me that warning about soft limits again. And now I'm connected to the test database, and I want to put my first document into the database. Let's see, db.people, and I'm going to use an insert command. And this document's a pretty simple document. It's going to have one key called name with a value of Andrew, and I'm going to insert that, and the shell returns, so it seems to all be good and inserted. And now I'm going to try to find the document that I just created to give myself some confidence that it really happened. And if I do that, then I can see the document that I just put into the database, which has an underscore ID assigned by the server. And then over here, there's my name as in the key for the name key. So at this point, we have MongoDB installed on the Mac. We have MongoD running, and we're running the Mongo shell, and we're connecting to it. So MongoDB is now installed on this Mac.